You have people like Hamza and Andrew Tate, and they're very open about this subject, how there's like a rise of weak men and that we need to do better and that we need to stop with these habits, or we need to put an end to these habits that are diminishing us and that are destroying us, and that we need to be better men and we need to be more masculine, we need to stand up. When I talk to someone else about it, they're just like, no, like, you guys are crazy, that makes no sense. And it's like, it's interesting because I feel like this area of self-improvement, these topics, there's such like, they have such a big loyal following that like either you're all in or you're not at all. So either you understand everything that I'm saying and you agree with it, or you don't at all. So this is just like my own perspective of why I think there's like a rise of weak men and what we can do to not be those people. And if you were to ask me what's the biggest issue, and if you were to ask any of these top influencers what's the biggest issue, it's pretty obvious. It's the lack of sexual control. And it's not just like where you're putting your parts, but it's also like where your eyes are going. And I think it starts with the eyes, which is very interesting because I'm Muslim and we're taught to lower our gaze. And I'm doing a much better job now, but I remember in the past I wasn't. And there was this Instagram post of this woman, and she posted these very like provocative, revealing pictures. And I remember in the comment section, this guy was like, "Please start an OnlyFans. I will pay you everything that I have in my life, in my savings." And I remember reading that, and I was like, "That is so pathetic. Like, what the hell is going on?" Like that was such a pathetic thing for someone to say. Because he's not even gonna like get to be with her. He's only paying to see her, which is like, what? You're just gonna touch yourself and be with her? That's pretty lame. But even if you were to pay her, that's another issue as well. But this is like even lower than that. Like, he doesn't even want to be with her. He just wants to see her. It's like, what? Like, how did men get to this point? Like, men are not supposed to be like this. How do we get to this point? And at that moment, I started thinking like, what do these industries want? What does this Pornhub industry or this OnlyFans industry, this industry that's showing women's bodies so openly, like what do they want? Are they trying to make money? Because you can make money doing a lot of things. So I don't think it's just the money that they're after. I feel like they want to destroy young men. They want to destroy men's motivation, and they want to destroy our desires, our lack of. They want to make us like less focused. They want to destroy our goals. What ends up happening is you have all these women who are making much more money than men, and there's nothing wrong with that. They're making more money and they're making at a faster rate than men could ever. And it's interesting. And it's like they're not doing it with a specific skill set. They don't have a special skill. They're just showing their bodies off, and that's what's making them money. Like, you have women making 30, 50,000, sometimes even 100,000 a month doing this, and it's like damn, like that's a big issue. Not because women shouldn't be paid a lot. That's not the issue. There's nothing wrong with, if I get married and my wife is making more than me, that's not an issue. The issue is where she's getting it from and the rate she's getting it at. You have an influx of women getting paid much more than men, and at a faster rate than men could ever get paid. And easier. They don't have to put in as much work. It's easier. Well, I won't say they don't have to put in as much work because, someone could argue that, someone who's making OnlyFans takes a lot of work. Sure, cool, content creation is not necessarily easy, but it doesn't require much skill set. The barrier of entry is just your body. And it gets me thinking, because it's like, this whole industry is not here to just make money. This industry is here to destroy you. It is here to destroy men. The biggest reason we have a rise of weak men in this world right now is because of these industries. It's because men can't control their sexual urges and their desires. And I love how there's people on YouTube. I love how there's people like Hamza and Andrew Tate talking about these topics, even though they might be a little bit taboo. Like, I'm from the Pakistani Indian Pakistani culture, and I'm Muslim. We don't necessarily open up about these topics and talk about them, but I think we need people to be more open about this subject, that like, hey, you shouldn't be doing this. Like, you think that this is not affecting you, but I think it's messing with you. I think that if you have anxiety and you have depression, you're lost, you're confused, you have no goals in life, you lack motivation, I think the one thing that you should look at, or maybe the only thing you should look at, is what you're looking at, what your eyes are looking at. Because it's not just about the physical. I know Muslim people who don't necessarily go and do these physical things. They're not actually having sex. They're not actually touching women. Sure, that's good. But they're touching themselves often, I bet. They're watching these things often. And it's like, it makes you think like God was right the whole time. When he tells you to lower your gaze, like in Islam, we have a ruling, and it's interesting because it's like this could actually help so many people, whether you're Muslim or not. This could help so many people. We have a ruling where we're like the first look is allowed, but then the second, third, fourth look is not allowed. So when God's like lower your gaze, you look once, sure, cool. After that, you're not allowed to look. If you look again, that's when the sinning starts. And you start thinking like, why would God want this? Why would this be a good idea? Why would I tell my friends or the people younger than me, the people below me, like my children, why would I tell them to do these things if I had children, right? Why would I tell them that you should lower your gaze? Because that dude who commented about the OnlyFans, he probably started off just by looking once or twice. The second look led to the third, the fourth, the fifth. Next thing you know, you're watching videos. It's a very sad and pathetic thing. You have men who are just infatuated with women, and it's like what? Like, I know some men who are taken and they're still doing it. Sure, they might not be touching other women, but where are your eyes going? You don't think that's an issue? You don't think that's affecting you at all? Not one bit? I started reading this book called Atomic Habits, and I might make a video about it soon because I think it's like a game-changing, a life-changing book. It's freaking amazing. And one of the things he talks about is like a 1% change every day can lead to either a huge improvement, within a year, or a huge decline within a year. They'll be like, well, I don't do it as much. I only do it a little bit here and there. But I'm starting to think like, after reading this book, I'm starting to think like that 1%, even if you do it a little bit, if you've been doing it for 5 to 6 years, you don't think it has any effect on you at all. Like, you don't think eventually, like, that's why that's why you're so anxious. That's why you're depressed. That's why you're lost. That's why you're sad. That's why you're having so many issues in life. That's why you have no motivation to go to the gym, to work, to be a better person. You don't want to talk to people. You don't want to go out and actually talk to girls. You rather just DM them because it's easy. You fear rejection. Why are you so scared? Why are you so fearful all the time? You don't think that should be the one thing that you should be looking at? Go on YouTube and look up this no-fap movement, and you'll understand that, like, that was your issue probably. That means that's not your only issue, but that was probably your biggest issue. Like, before you look at anything else, you got to look at that. Before you look at my habits, my mindset, do I meditate, do I read, do I work out? Sure, those things are really, really good, but if you're still constantly viewing these things, your mind's just going to be like a slave to it. Eventually, you're going to be a slave to it. And that guy who commented is a clear slave. He's a clear slave. He has no control over his private parts. He has no control over his desires. He's like, I will give you all the money I have just to see you. Whether he was joking or not, who knows? But it's like, God damn, like that's where we're at now. That's where we're at. And what that does is it leads to a lack of goals and focus. You don't have any focus in life. You don't have any good habits. Why would you have good habits? What's the point of running every single day and meditating and reading books and working out? What's the point of trying to become a better person if one of the biggest pleasures in life is given to you like this? It's like right at your fingertips. It's an interesting thing to think about. This is why I'm even making these videos, because it's like, if you're not yet fully convinced that this is an issue, maybe my perspective can help change that. But this is just my perspective, and why I think that there's a big rise of weak men is because this one thing. And what you realize later over time is that if you can discipline that, like your eyes, it's not necessarily your private parts, right? Like, we're taught, especially in Islam, that you're supposed to guard your private parts, like guard them. Don't just willy-nilly go around putting them anywhere. Guard them. Be strict about it. Very interesting how Allah uses the word guard. Like, whoa, guard? It's, like, think about the things that you're told to guard. Like, you're going to get like a gun and all this armor and you're going to guard it with all your life. Like, he's telling you guard your private parts. Like, damn, like, what? But not only that, like I said, I know people who don't physically do anything, but mentally, like with their eyes, they're looking at so many things, and it's like, you don't think that's having an effect on you. If you don't think that, then you're just so into it and you're so lost that you don't even know how to pull yourself out of it. You're making this normal. You're doing it so much, you're making this normal. You're making this a normal thing. This is okay. You start thinking that, especially after reading this Atomic Habits book, I started thinking that, like, okay, damn, like maybe these small bad habits are leading to a big decline maybe they're going to lead to a big issue later on. That's what it starts with. It starts with what you look at. It starts with your sexual control. Why do you think Andrew Tate preaches about it so much? Like, there's videos of him talking to women who have OnlyFans, and he's trying to like be a father figure, damn near. Like, he's trying to tell them, he's trying to teach them and put them on. Like, no wonder these people preach it so much, because the negative effects it has on your body and your mind, it's real. It's truly a big issue, and that, I think, is the main reason why there's a rise of weak men, is because of that. Because now men are slaves to women. They're slaves to the internet and social media, and they're slaves to their desires. They have no control. They lack any control at all. If you just lack sexual control, it's not just sexual, it's everything else after that. You don't have any goals. You don't have any focus. There's no discipline. There's no motivation. You can't be doing that. You got to be disciplined. You got to be focused. No wonder these men, Andrew Tate and Hamza, and then all these other self-improvement gurus, no wonder they talk about these things, because that's where it all starts from. If you're not a slave to those things, well, now you can open up and focus on what you really need to focus on and become who you really need to be. And it's crazy as hell to think about, like, damn, like, no wonder Tate converted, because it's like that's where he was going anyway. Like, I feel like that's the third level. Like, the first level is to preach about staying away from all these immoralities and these sins that Islam is clearly against already. The second thing is to improve yourself and make yourself better. I think that's the second level. And the third level is to accept that all of this came from God, and that you shouldn't be a slave to your desires. You shouldn't be a slave to money and your career and material things, because these two things are never going to give you any like satisfaction. And that in the end, you should truly be a slave of Allah. And that when you see that Andrew converted, it's like, I feel like he went down that path. Maybe I'll make another video about this, but it's very, very interesting to think about how he ended up getting there. And that's my perspective. That's why I think there's such a rise of weak men, is because we can't control our desires. We can't control our emotions. If you're able to just stop with your eyes, like limit what you see with your eyes, start with that first, I think that can make a big change in your life. I think if you were to just not watch these things and not feed into this industry, don't help this industry make more money. Don't talk about this industry. Don't talk about these things. Don't be going around on Instagram liking all these women. Unfollow all these women. Stop looking at women like that. I think that will eventually lead you to the second step, which is going to be, how do I become a better person now? Because now I'm not a slave to anything else. I'm free. And now when you're free, you're like, okay, like, what's the true like meaning of life? Like, what's my true purpose? What do I go after now? Why do I think the rise of weak men, it all started from this like lack of sexual control? Because once that's there, once you have control and once you're able to discipline your mind, then the next step is to become a better version of yourself, to build these good habits. Now you have the energy back. Now you have the dopamine, right? Because dopamine, what it does is it just seeks reward. It's not the actual feeling of reward. It just seeks the reward. But if you're already watching all these things, you're already getting the reward. Why would I want to seek reward from a book or from the gym or from actual work or actually helping someone or talking to a woman in real life? You ever thought about that? Like, so that's where it leads up to. If you were to stop viewing these things and stop giving more power to this industry, then you realize that, okay, now I'm free. Now I can focus on the things that matter and try to actually improve myself and actually become better. And I'm doing this as well. I'm trying to become better as well. I'm only telling you from my experience what I've seen from myself and from other people, and why I think it's a big issue. And that's where like my motivation to do YouTube even comes from. Like, from people like this, they're like, there's a big following of this topic on YouTube, and it's like, that's what I want to do. I want to talk about these topics. I want to talk about how I can help people. I want to actually help someone's life. I want to actually change someone's life. Sure, the money is one thing, and then the views are one thing. And I remember a couple of days ago, one of my shorts actually got like 1,000 views or something like that, which is like the most I've ever gotten on any YouTube video. So I mean, I appreciate whoever's supporting me. If you guys are supporting me, thank you so much for that. But I remember like seeing the views and I was like, cool. Like that was a big deal because it showed that people are actually interested in me. But then I was like, it really doesn't mean much because what matters more is actually helping people. Like I'm not really in this for the views. I'm not really in this for the money. That's a part of it. Of course, I want to be, at the top. I want to get all that money, but it would mainly be to show people that, hey, first of all, this can be done, that you can make as much money as I am, like it's possible. And also it's like the financial freedom, right? I'm not relying on anything else. I don't have to do a specific type of job. I can do what I want. I can do this full time and help my family, stuff like that. So that's my motivation. But it really comes from these people.